and welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I am Michael DeLon. Today, I'm talking with Kyle and Ariel Tresch. Kyle and Ariel, welcome to Experts Speak. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. So glad to be here. And thank you for having us, Michael.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. And I'm excited to dive into a topic that maybe other people haven't heard talked about a whole lot before.
I think probably not. I think you're probably the first couple I've had on the podcast to talk about it. And so what Kyle and Ariel do is we're going to be talking about how entrepreneurial couples grow their business without growing apart. Because, oh, Lord knows, it can be tension-filled sometimes. And so that's going to be a great conversation. I can't wait to dive in. So let's just start, as I always do, in asking, how in the world did you two get doing what you're doing today?
Yeah. So for us, it all started with what we call the anti-honeymoon phase. So, when couples get married, right? The phase after their marriage or their wedding is the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
For us personally, we had the complete opposite. So we got married, we entered into what we now call the anti-honeymoon phase. And it's something that a lot of entrepreneur couples really experience that at the time we didn't know. So we've now been together for over 12 years now. But prior to getting married, we came from a small town in Ohio. We grew up in the midst of cornfields. Both of us were business owners. We were both entrepreneurial. So Kyle was a digital marketing consultant and I had a dog grooming salon, was my first business. And then I went into an organic marketing coaching business. And by the blessing of both of our businesses, we were able to self-fund our dream wedding. We, moved to a beautiful place in Florida. And I remember we thought, we're both entrepreneurial. We're both, going the same direction. We have a shared language. Things are only going to get better from here. But what actually happened was kind of the opposite. We came back, we dove right back into work. We spent a lot of time in our separate offices and we went from being this newlywed, happy, romantic couple to really just feeling like roommates or even business partners.
Yeah.
And we started experiencing some of those issues that at the time nobody was talking about. Like, how do you stop thinking about work? How do you stop talking about work when you just want to be present with each other? How do you and your partner align on where you're going and the specific approach to getting there? Because you have different ideas of how that can look sometimes. How do you give feedback to your partner, especially on business decisions, without one person feeling criticized? And basically, just how do you grow a business in a sustainable way without it coming at the expense of our relationship or our family or our health and things like that? So we were experiencing these tensions and nobody was really talking about it. But what we found is as our busyness went up, our intimacy went down.
Yeah.
And from a business perspective, that's when our income actually just flatlined.
Yeah.
So,
and because we had all that complexity, I thought at the time that the solution was to just have Ariel come alongside me and be my assistant in business. That's what I thought. And that created, as you can imagine, some power struggles between us because Ariel was in her own right a powerhouse entrepreneur woman. And so when I asked her to just be my assistant, thinking I was the man for doing so, it just caused even more tension. So this kind of left us feeling kind of stuck where we were thinking to ourselves, do we need to sacrifice our business in order to make our marriage better?
Yeah.
We knew we didn't want to sacrifice our marriage for our business, but we also didn't want to give up entrepreneurship to help our relationship. So we're like, what do we even do? So we were very confused during this anti-honeymoon phase. And one day that changed everything for us was a day where we went to a guest room of our house. I got on my knees. I was praying out to God for an answer because nowhere, I couldn't turn anywhere else. So I turned to God. And I remember getting off from my hands and knees. I got on social media, which is probably the worst place in the world to go when you're looking for solutions to life. But on this day specifically, it actually was helpful because I saw a live video that Ariel was doing for her organic marketing coaching business at the time. And under that video were just comments from women all over the world thanking Ariel for sharing her wisdom and helping them grow businesses from home. And I remember seeing that going, okay, wait a second. She clearly is a gifted entrepreneur. And I do not want to take the light that God gave her and put it under a bushel by just making her my assistant. So we knew that wasn't the answer either. So in that moment, I remember just running out of the room. I found Ariel and I said, Ariel, I'm so sorry for trying to get you to conform to my image of what I thought would be best. We clearly just need to create a whole new path forward. And in that moment, we asked ourselves this question: how do we take our individual passions and point them towards a unified purpose? And with that question being the guidepost for everything we did, we started creating the third path, a brand new approach to doing business, to doing life together, to having a relationship together that nobody else was teaching. And slowly but surely, months into this, we started to see things that would work. We started to see what would work to help us actually feel aligned and unified on where we were going. we started seeing what would work to help us feel like romantically connected again, so that we're romantic partners, not just business partners. We started seeing what it's like to leverage each other's strengths without stepping on each other's toes.
Yeah.
And as a result of doing all these things, not only did our intimacy come back better than ever, if I might say,
Love that.
but you want to know what happened to our revenue? It completely skyrocketed. So it was almost like this invisible barrier on our business was just lifted once we figured out how to actually maximize our working dynamic as a couple. So my business 3x in revenue, Ariel's business like just skyrocketed, and we're like, this is interesting. So what would happen is we would go on these date nights and we would post photos and videos of us doing so. And we had so many couples reach out to us saying, how in the world do you guys do this? Like, how do you make this work without wanting to kill each other? People would ask us these questions, and we're like, you know what? Maybe we'll just start sharing the tips and some of the strategies we've used, and maybe it would be helpful. And then fast forward, a few months later, now we have a business that is one of the fastest growing coaching companies for entrepreneur couples in the world, where today we have the opportunity to coach and mentor couples from all over the world on how to grow massively successful businesses. I mean, we have couples in our programs doing 50K, 100K, 300K months in their business. And the thing that they tell us they love the most is not all the revenue, but actually the intimacy that they're growing as a couple in the process. So that is what brings us to what we do today. It was something we fell into, but now it gives us the opportunity to say, we took the stairs so we can offer other entrepreneur couples the elevator.
I love it. I love it. What a great story. Thank you for sharing all of that. And it's through the hardness of life that we find growth, right?
Yes.
Everybody, I always tell people, everybody wants to be on the mountaintop, have mountaintop experiences with God, and I'm like, look on the mountaintop. How many trees grow on a mountaintop? Not many.
That's a good point.
But you look down on the lush valley, right? And it's glorious. And do you know why it's so glorious and green and lush? Because there's a lot of down there. And
that's a good point.
Love it.
And that's how we have to walk through that to enjoy some other things, which all have walked through. And it's really cool because so many, I think, entrepreneurs whose wives are like, my wife's my bookkeeper, right? My son's my chief operating officer. And so we have tension all over the place, but it's good, healthy tension. We've been doing this since 2013. We have found most of the rhythms. Oh, but there are days, right? And
for sure.
And I totally get it. So what are some of the struggles? Let's hit some of the big struggles. And you mentioned a few of them, but as you work with your clients and our listeners who are out there going, I think I heard myself. I think I'm still on that anti-honeymoon. I've been married 40 years. Talk to them about what are the struggles that they normally feel that you see are really common, but nobody's talking about.
Yeah. You want to go first?
So I'm going to start with one of the deeper ones. So we hit on some of the surface level ones, but how do you stop thinking about work? Like, that's a big one. How do you create more time for your relationship? Like, all those different things. So those are important, but I would say they're a little more surface level. The one that I see that is the most prevalent that we see is a little bit deeper, and it has to do with kind of like a mental barrier that operates in the back of a lot of business owners' minds when they do work with their partner. We were in a mastermind room one time where we were asked the question, like, what is the biggest barrier to your success? And the biggest thing that people said, or the most common thing that people said, was that growing a business will like cause me to sacrifice in other areas. And so what we see specifically with the business owners that we work with is when we first start working together, they're oftentimes at a place where they were doing really well, but their revenue is kind of staying stagnant. And what we find is it's not usually a marketing strategy, which we do. It's not usually a marketing strategy that's going to fix it. Usually it's adjusting the belief that if I grow my business more, it will cause me more pain, especially more pain in the relationship. Because if they've been in a position where growing a business up into that point caused some tension, caused some division, caused some fights, they start to project that onto the future. And so it actually prevents them and sabotages them from wanting to grow their business more. So I would say personally, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. That's probably the most pervasive one that we see that we have to navigate.
Yeah. And when we're able to kind of dig deep with couples on coaching calls about that subject, what we're able to do is establish new habits and new routines for them to start showing evidence to their own minds that growing a business can actually grow you closer with your significant other, not further apart. Because if we could positively reinforce the act of growing a business and even add some fun incentives of going on date nights every single week. And inside of our coaching programs, we literally give away prizes for couples that go on consistent date nights every week and share their photos of it. When we can kind of gamify all of this and make it fun again, all of a sudden growing business is no longer a threat to our relationship or our family. It is actually something that supports and gives us more time and more freedom to enjoy our family and our relationship, of course.
Yeah.
So I would say, no, that's probably one of the biggest ones for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool, because on the date nights, you start coming together as a couple, which is where you started, right? Hopefully falling back in love and realizing that when we have unity of oneness and purpose as a couple, the other things can start pulling together. But I think, tell me if you see this. Do you find entrepreneurs, especially men, I would guess, who are like, okay, yeah, I want this, but I really want my wife to align with what I need her to do. Kind of what I want you to become my AA, right? Is that pretty prevalent, especially in men?
I think it is.
So,
would you say it is?
Yeah, I would say so.
I think it is.
It can go back and forth though. It's not always with men. A lot of the times it's with the women too. But I'll let you.
Well, no, I mean, do you want to elaborate on that?
So what we see a lot of the times is we have, again, a lot of the times it is the men. Other times it's a very strong entrepreneurial woman. And sometimes what happens is when there's a very strong entrepreneurial woman, the man, and I don't want to speak for the men, but the men will oftentimes feel like they are not needed when they're with a very strong, independent entrepreneurial woman. And so sometimes the man will actually become a little bit more,
they can become passive, right?
Or
detached. Essentially, like in that we see two different types of dynamics when it comes to this. One dynamic is with a very strong woman, and then the man becomes more passive and kind of starts to retreat because inside of work, he feels like he has no control or purpose. So therefore he retreats to something where he can actually control. And that creates almost like a detachment in the relationship. But there's also another side when Ariel and I have experienced more of this type of dilemma where you have two very strong-willed, very, like leader-based people who are both visionary and both driving. And it creates, in the beginning stages, some competition, some like
some power struggles,
some definite power struggles. And in those cases, for the men, at least what I can say for myself, what has been so helpful is to understand and elevate my definition of what actual leadership is. Actual leadership isn't me saying that I'm better than Ariel because I'm the man and I'm the leader and I have the vision. That's actually not true leadership. True leadership is recognizing the giftedness of other people that are around you and using your strength as a leader to get underneath them and raise them up. And for most guys, that's a huge turning point, because up until that point, you might feel like I want my wife to be more, submissive, or I want my wife to just follow my lead. I want them to just do what I say. That's where it starts. But if you do that, you're actually depriving your wife and the rest of the world from the gifts that God gave her to shine. So if you're leading a team, what makes a great leader is a leader who can recognize everybody in their team, the giftedness that God gave them, and could allow them to have opportunities to shine. The same is true with your number one teammate, who is your wife. So as a man, that's what really helped me to realize is that my strength as a man is not determined by my authoritarian nature. My strength as a man is actually utilized to uplift the strengths of my wife.
Absolutely. So, okay, I got a title for your next book. Okay. And based on all that, Invisible Leadership.
Invisible leadership. Interesting.
Invisible, because that's what you just described. A great leader is invisible, but they're lifting everybody up to right. It's not about me. It's about them. And if I get recognition, great. I always go back to like Apple, right? Everybody says, well, Steve Jobs does all this. It's like, you know what? Who's the second guy in command and the third guy in command at Apple? Nobody can tell you. But they're the ones who made Apple. Steve was just a great front guy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's invisible leadership, and that's really what you just described. Love that. Anyway.
I mean,
so good.
That's cool. I like it.
Tension. I'd love to dive into this. Let's get some practical tips for those entrepreneurial couples before they come and join your program and work with you. They're struggling right now. We are recording this in early November. That means we have Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all of that. Let's navigate that in terms of business and immediate family and extended family and all that stuff. How do you help them what are some practical things entrepreneurs can do right now to help during these wacky times of holidays and or birthdays or anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And well, you mentioned the word tension, and that's an important word to focus on, because even entrepreneur couples who have the best relationships that you've seen,
Yeah.
they can still experience some tension if we're honest with ourselves of where we disagree or where we might not feel 100% aligned with each other. And it creates tension and a little bit of stress and frustration. And from our experience, we've had the opportunity to talk to thousands of entrepreneur couples now.
Yeah.
I think we have one of the largest groups of entrepreneur couples in the world and the largest data pools of what entrepreneur couples go through. And here's what we can tell you. The number one root cause of all tension from our perspective is unmet expectations between a couple. Number one, hands down. Everything flows from that place. So if anyone listening to this is feeling tension with their partner over anything, most likely there's an unmet expectation in some area. So if you're feeling frustration, you might consider asking yourself, what expectation am I holding that is not being met right now? And if you can recognize and identify that unmet expectation, we can give you some clues as to how you can resolve that. Because 9 times out of 10, that unmet expectation is unmet because of 3 core reasons. And they all start with you. Those expectations are either A, unclear, B, unspoken, or C, unrealistic.
Yeah.
If we can clarify all of those 3 things, though, if we can make sure that the expectation is clear, it is spoken, and it's actually realistic based on the time and the energy allotted to meet the expectation, all of a sudden the tension resolves. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. We have an incredible couple in one of our coaching programs who came to us on a call, and they have a very successful business, but they felt that same type of tension that so many other entrepreneur couples feel. And when we got to the root of it, we just asked them one simple question: what expectation is being unmet right now? And they started bringing up how there were some expectations in the household that they weren't meeting. There were some expectations in the business that they weren't meeting. And on that call, we helped them get very clear on what they were. We helped them talk about it in a safe environment where they can speak their minds openly on a coaching call with us, where they know that, nobody's going to get away with criticizing or condemning each other. And then they set realistic, tangible ways to measure those expectations being done. And as a result, just from that one call that we did with them, they changed their approach for so many different areas of their life. And within just a couple months later, not only did their relationship improve, their business absolutely skyrocketed as well. They were having, I think they told us that they achieved their annual revenue goals by when?
By the beginning of Q2.
By the beginning of Q2. So they massively skyrocketed their business. But even more importantly, their relationship grew so much that their entire team started to notice, and they started to recognize that they were doing things differently than everybody else. And throughout the summer, just a couple months later, this couple who owned a chiropractic practice here in South Florida, they were actually voted the #1 chiropractors in Florida.
Wow.
And as they're doing this, they're being elevated as a power couple in their industry and their community. And now they told us, because of the things that we've implemented to get clear of these expectations and all the other strategies that we teach, they told us that other people in their lives are actually coming to them for relationship advice using the tools and the strategies we teach. So I would say that anybody listening who has tension, just ask yourself, what is the unmet expectation? And is that expectation unmet because it's unclear, unspoken, or unrealistic?
Wow. All right, we're done. That's all you need to hear. No, I mean, that was amazing. Thank you for that. And it's so spot on. And dare I add one thing, and you can just throw this off, is I tell people all the time, when you're dealing with stuff like this, especially when I'm thinking about what is that expectation, think on paper. Don't try to think it in my mind because it's spaghetti, but get it out and write or type, but writing on a pad of paper with a pen, going, what am I expecting? Oh, do you ever think, I mean, is that fair?
Yeah,
totally fair.
Absolutely. Because I think a lot of the times the unmet expectation, we don't recognize that we're even holding it. So when you ask yourself that question and then you can actually write it out, it takes something and it makes it very tangible. Just a silly example is like, we see, like, I use this example all the time because it just shows how our expectations can be like unclear or unspoken. If I expect that Kyle's going to take the trash out and the trash is full in my regard and he hasn't taken the trash out yet, and then I'm like, why haven't you taken the trash out? Is our definition of full the same? And it's like, maybe not. So when you get a chance to your point, to write it out, I think that's where you get a chance to see on paper, what is it that I'm actually expecting? And what's the expectation that I'm holding them to that maybe I'm aware of, but they're definitely unaware of.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is so good. So I just encourage everybody just to pause, go back 8 minutes, re-listen to all of that because that was gold. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's talk about your programs. I mean, so you've got talk about how businesses, how do you interact with husbands and wives? I've heard phone calls. Is it a phone call? Is it mastermind? Is it comment? What kinds of things do you offer to entrepreneurial couples?
Yeah, you want to take that?
Absolutely. So we have a variety of different programs that are available to entrepreneur couples, and it's really just based on the needs of the couple that we will kind of prescribe what program is best for them. On one type of program, we have a group coaching model where essentially you can gather around with other incredible entrepreneur couples from all over the world. And every single week, we have an hour-long discussion about the things that we all deal with as entrepreneur couples, but nobody else talks about. So we're talking about how do you actually align on your vision and your goals and your roles in your business? How do you actually have conversations with each other without criticizing one another? How do you go from disagreeing vehemently to actually making a decision and not holding each other accountable to the process if it doesn't go well, or bragging when it goes right? How do we actually have conversations around intimacy and making sure that that's prioritized, so that way we're not just business partners, we're actually romantic and married couple partners in the same process. We talk about these things on a weekly basis, and we also give our clients access to a Facebook community of entrepreneur couples who are able to bounce ideas off of each other, support each other, and champion each other as they grow their businesses more. That's one type of program. And then those who want a little bit more extra support, we have a program that takes all of the beautiful things that allow entrepreneur couples to succeed. And we pair on top of that customized digital marketing strategies to help them grow and scale their businesses faster than ever before. Because what we figured out is that really the ticket to skyrocketing a couple's business is to combine what objectively works to grow and scale businesses with how the couple uniquely works together. Because if you compare what works with how they work as a couple, the Venn diagram of that is a customized strategy that allows couples to leverage and maximize their gifts to grow and scale businesses faster than ever before. And we can say that because we've consulted with and coached companies that have done anywhere from $500,000 a month to $2 million a month. And seeing what works and what doesn't at different stages just equips us with the business knowledge to help couples customize a strategy that allows them to get the most done in the shortest amount of time possible.
Very cool. Very cool. And size of business matter at all?
That's a great question. What would you say to
that? For the group coaching program, not exactly. We work with couples at all different stages of businesses, because those conversations are really focused around the couplepreneur dynamic that we call it, and every business owner experiences that. In our higher level program, we do recommend couples are generally around the 200K in revenue mark and above, but we do have clients that again are at that level, as well as we have different cohorts that are at even higher levels of business. So that's kind of how we break it up amidst the different programs.
That's great. And I figured that was going to be the answer, because normally a group coaching program is where we start to start gaining traction, some paradigm shifts, some alignment in the relationship, which causes some business growth to go, oh, now I'm getting a taste of this. Now let's get to that next level, right? You can't just jump into the deep end most of the time. So
100%. Not only that too, but even in the higher touch program, what we found out is that the couples who succeeded the most were actually succeeding because they were maximizing their relationship dynamic first. So we decided, you know what, we're going to make the group coaching program accessible to anybody who's serious about investing and prioritizing their working relationship. We're going to make that accessible. And that way we can help strategically build a foundation with every single couple, so that way they can grow a business without growing apart in the process. And once you have that foundation in place, putting the marketing strategies in place, the business growth strategies, putting the team in place, the hiring plans in place, all that is just easy.
That's the easy part.
That's the easy part. It's just making sure that foundation is strong with you and your significant other, and you're so clear on where you're going. If you can get that in place, everything else is easy.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I just put like this math formula on my notes saying relationship over revenue.
I love it.
And it's just so good. And then what happens is you get R&R, not rest and relaxation, but relationship and revenue. So
there we go.
It's just the idea of actually putting, I mean, in a faith community, we put Christ first. And when you do that, everything else starts aligning.
100%.
Makes everything else work well. Same thing in a marriage. When you're an entrepreneurial couple, I mean, that's probably harder than just being married, right? Because you got so many dynamics, and it's like, how do we navigate this? And I love the fact that y'all are talking about it because there aren't many people talking about this. And then, but I love the fact that you added the social media marketing and the digital marketing to it to say, okay, it's about more than just your relationship. That's super important. That's probably primary. But now let's drive the revenue so that you have more time, more freedom, more impact, like the chiropractic couple. And the ripple effect, right?
Yes, exactly. We found that you can't, when it comes to working with your partner, you can't separate just the relational dynamic or the working dynamic and the business growth itself. They go so hand in hand. The tensions they experience go hand in hand, and the solutions go hand in hand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, Kyle and Ariel, we the three of us could talk for quite some time. And we're like three peas in a pod because you hit my core in lots of areas. But I want to give my audience an opportunity to reach out to you to potentially join your group coaching program, to maybe have a conversation about that higher level, to say, how do you help us get this thing figured out? Because we want to be strong as a couple, profitable as a business, and make a great impact in the people we live by. How do people take that next step? Where would they go to find out more about you, your business, and opportunities?
Yeah, so there's a couple places. The main one I would say is follow us on Instagram. So our Instagram handle is @couplepreneurs. And what you can actually do is, if you send us a message there with the word template, we'll send over a quarterly goal planning template that we give to our couples that we work with to help them align their goals, both personally and relationally, but also within the business as well.
Yeah. And if anybody likes that and they want to see more and discuss what it could potentially look like to work with us, you can honestly just, talk to us on Instagram and ask us about that. And we or our assistant could book a call with them to just see what some of the goals actually are.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say is we also have a podcast. So we have a podcast called The Couplepreneur Show on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify.
Yeah. And basically the Couplepreneur Show is designed to take some of today's most influential power couples in business and actually reverse engineer the practices they put in place that make it all work. So if anyone's interested in that, definitely check it out. I would say one last thing is we have a Facebook group of over 5,000 entrepreneur couples at this point. And what's so cool about that is if you're looking for a community to really get around, man, I think this is the biggest one in the world for couplepreneurs. And all you have to do is go to Facebook, look for successful couples in business, find that free Facebook group, join it. And if there's anything we could do to support, just feel free to reach out to us.
Awesome. I'm grabbing those, going to put those in the show notes so that our audience can connect with that after they go back and re-listen to it, because you dropped so much gold, especially when we were talking about unmet expectations. Go back and check that out, listen to that, and then follow them on Instagram, reach out, connect with the Facebook group, definitely listen to the podcast, and just see how you can grow your business without growing apart as an entrepreneurial couple. Love this. Kyle, Ariel, thank you. Thank you for being a guest on Expert Speak, but more importantly, thank you for doing what you're doing to impact marriages, families, businesses worldwide. So grateful.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. We appreciate it.
Honor.